ואנו מכריזים בזאת
Hello, I'm Barry Shaw, and this is The View from Israel. In recent days, we've repeatedly witnessed scenes of Jews under threat, whether in Paris, London, or even in a Texas synagogue. There's a need for Jews to individually and collectively to find the courage to be more outspoken and act against the threats they're increasingly experiencing. Anti-Semitic Israeli hatred is on the rise. These are not separate issues. They're a common hybrid hatred, which must be met by affirmative Jewishness and affirmative Zionism. It took 11 hours for the Beit Israel rabbi to realize that appeasing an Islamic extremist with a gun gets you nowhere. A rabbi who had spent his career leading his Jewish community in collaboration with the local Muslim community is a very fine thing. But at the end of the day, as they found out, in a seminal moment came when he had to throw a chair at an Islamic gunman to enable his congregation to escape with their lives when 11 hours of appeasement failed. His final act of affirmative Jewishness is what saved his congregation. This is something that sadly too many Israelis have experienced both in military and in their civilian lives. Each of us experience acts of affirmative Zionism. Defending Israel from those who want to harm us is an act of affirmative Jewishness. And no one expresses this more than today's special guest, Avner Avraham. Welcome to The View from Israel, Avner.
Thank you very much.
For our viewers, Avner has spent many years both in the IDF and 20 years of service in the Mossad. This is the Israeli intelligence agency, often abroad. Avner is experienced in dedicating his life and putting his life at risk for the sake of affirmative Zionism for the state of Israel. Avner, tell us something about your work as a curator of the Mossad Museum and what you've done subsequently when you left the Mossad in taking this exhibition around the globe, mainly in Europe and America, I believe.
Okay, so 11 years ago, I made a small exhibit about the capture of Eichmann, and the Prime Minister Netanyahu asked me to come to the parliament with this small exhibit. And then Tamir Pardo, that was the chief of Mossad, asked me before I retired to stay 3 years and to build museum for the Mossad. So I became the manager of the first Mossad ever museum. I made more than 25 different spy exhibitions, and a few of them, I got permission to show a few of them to the public and to show it around the world. So the first one was Operation Finale, the capture of Eichmann, and the second was Operation ENTEBBE, and we will talk about the raid in ENTEBBE and the special role of Mossad and spy in this operation. So when I retired from the Mossad and when we started with the COVID-19, I decided to establish a speaker bureau, and today SpyLegends.com is the biggest speakers agency in Israel that deal with spy and security. We have hundreds of speakers from all over the world, from former CIA and FBI and former Mossad agents, high-rank officers and professors from universities and producers that produce spy movies and more. And we have a great connections with the Jewish communities, with the universities, with the companies around the world. And we provide not only a one Zoom event, we provide the programs about Israel, about Judaism, about the war, and the life in Israel. And it's a great connection between the Jewish people all over the world, and also for the non-Jewish people that can learn about this young country that have to fight almost every day.
Now, there've been a number of movies made about this Entebbe operation. And one of them was called Operation Thunderbolt. There have been many others as well, Operation Entebbe. But this was not just a military mission. So I want to talk to you particularly about the Mossad role behind it all. So Avner, let's set the scene and tell us about how the whole thing began. Tell us about the plane hijacking. Where did it begin?
So the whole story started at the end of June 1976. The whole story is 1 week. Started from Sunday, and the end, when the hostages landed in Israel, was exactly a week after. People coming to the international airport near Tel Aviv, what we used to call Lod, today is Ben Gurion Airport, and they wanted to fly to Paris with the Air France plane. Most of them didn't know that there is a stop in Athens. And in Athens, 4 terrorists, 2 Arabs and 2 Germans, men and women, get on the plane, and a few minutes after the takeoff, they hijack the plane. And our story, the Mossad war, started because of the fact that it became international story. It wasn't inside Israel like Sabena. It wasn't a hijacked plane that landed in Tel Aviv and negotiate with the IDF and all the other security forces. It was something that happened all over the world. And as we know, the plane continued to Libya, and from Libya to Africa, to Uganda. And in this case, the Mossad, that usually don't work inside Israel, the Mossad is expert in outside Israel. That's why the Mossad needed to help. And it was a huge part of the operation. Actually, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin couldn't approve the operation without the special last-minute intelligence information that the Mossad brought from the airport a day before.
Right, I'm going to ask you an intriguing question, because quite a number of viewers, people watching this video, have a connection with Manchester. They either live in Manchester, England. They either live there or they come from there. So what's the Manchester connection with the raid on Entebbe?
Okay, so Patricia Mertel, that grew up in Manchester and became nurse, decided to make Aliyah a few years before the Entebbe story. She started to work in a hospital, and one day the manager of the hospital asked her to be a personal nurse for the president of Uganda, Idi Amin Dada, because he used to come to the hospital from time to time. He was a sick man, and since she could speak perfect English, he decided that she will be the secret and the special nurse that take care of the president. And she got married 2 weeks before the plane hijacked, and her mom came from Manchester to the wedding, and then she flew back to Manchester, and suddenly she didn't feel well. They took her to the hospital, and she died there. And the bad message that her mom passed away came from Manchester 3 days before our story started. It was Thursday, and she was religious. She decided to fly on Sunday morning, and unfortunately she took the Air France plane to Paris. But she decided, when she found out that the plane hijacked, she decided that she will do everything to come immediately to Manchester, because the whole family waiting for her. And she injured herself and told the German woman terrorist that she got a miscarriage and she need to get off the plane immediately. And she started blooding her all over, and the terrorists decided to let her go. And when they landed in Libya to refuel the plane, she could go to the hospital, and from the hospital, she got one night in hotel, and in the morning she flew to London, and in London, the MI6, the British Secret Service, together with Mossad agents, questioned her in the airport. And a good friend of mine also came to Manchester to meet her in Manchester and to continue ask her all the questions. And he also came with a catalog with hundreds of pictures to show her and to ask her if she can try to recognize some of the faces. But she was the first reliable inside information from the plane. She came with all the small details about the terrorists, how many terrorists, what kind of weapons, and small details of all the description that you need when you enter, when you come to release the hostages. You need to know exactly from the watch to the haircut, from the clothes to the color of the shoes of the terrorist. So this is actually the first part of the Mossad role in the operation, getting the information from London by questioning Patricia Myrtle.
The plane obviously landed in Entebbe, and they were held over there in Entebbe airport, protected by Idi Amin's soldiers. And Idi Amin actually came to visit and view the passengers who were being held hostage, did nothing about it. But in our first video, the one about the capture of Eichmann, you referred to the hotel in Herzliya Pituach as being a point in which the first initial relevant information was passed over to the Mossad about the whereabouts of Eichmann. But I understand the same hotel has a particular connection with Idi Amin. Can you tell our viewers about that?
Yes, so Hotel Hasharon, it's not far away from my studio, was also the place that Idi Amin Dada used to stay when he came to a medical care in Israel. And maybe they have a special rooms with videos or microphone or whatever, but it looks like that this hotel is a spy hotel, and all the secret meetings was there. It's very interesting. I will try to make a research about this hotel. But anyway, Idi Amin, when he used to come to visit the hostages, he usually came with the limousine, with the black limousine, Mercedes, followed by 2 Land Rovers full of soldiers, Ugandan soldiers with uniforms. And the Sayeret Matkal, the commander unit, together with the IDF and the Mossad, decided to come with the idea that if you want to approach the terminal and if you want to come and to kill the terrorists and release the hostages, you need to come in a way that no one will know about you, only in the last second. And they decided to come with the same limousine and same 2 Land Rovers. So they asked the Mossad to find a limousine, and the Mossad came with the limousine. It was a beige color. They needed to change the color to black, and they flew with the Mercedes, and they also needed to supply Ugandan uniforms for the soldiers. So this is the story about the Mercedes, and the Mercedes is the second part of the Mossad world.
You talking about the limousine. You shared with me a story of how the Mossad had to chase around Israel trying to find some black spray or something in order to convert this limousine into the black color you needed before it could be sent on the operation. Tell us a bit of that background.
So the Mossad brought the Mercedes beige, and Yoni Netanyahu, it was Saturday morning, the day of the operation, before they flew to Uganda. Yoni Netanyahu asked one of his soldiers to go and find a black spray. And it was Saturday morning, no malls in Israel in the 70s, everything is closed. So he decided to break the door and to enter to a paint shop and take the spray. But before, he saw an emergency address note in the door, and he decided to go to the address and to ask the owner to come and open the shop for him. And he went there and he met the wife. She scared when she saw a soldier, actually 2 soldiers coming to her apartment, and they told her, it's okay, we are looking for your husband, we need something, it's emergency, we need something from his shop. And she said, he's in the synagogue. And they came to the synagogue, and he was in the middle of praying. They took him and they said, I don't want to drive, it's a Saturday, let's walk to the shop. And they walked together with him to the shop. He opened for them, he gave them the box of spray, and all the rest is history.
Now, you have a very special story about 2 heroic pilots. One of those was basically in the service of the Mossad, and the other one. Tell us the story about the 2 pilots that helped achieve the success in Entebbe.
So the first hero of the pilots is the captain of the Air Force plane, Michel Bacos, and Michel Bacos. There is a new street in Netanya on his name. He passed away 3 years ago, unfortunately, but I met him in Nice 6 years ago. On Tuesday, the 3rd day, the terrorists decided to make a separation between the passengers. So they opened the door between the main hall and the second small hall, and they said, we are going to call names. They came with a table full of passports, since they got all the passports, and they started calling names, but the passengers could see in a few minutes that they are calling only Israelis. They just called all the people that hold Israeli passports. But they also saw Jews that having a typical Jewish dress, like Haredic suit or a kippah, wearing kippah, and they also told them you have to go to the Israeli Jewish room. So they tried to locate, of course, all the Israelis and all the Jews that it was, you could see that they are Jewish. And the captain decided that he will not stay with all the foreigners. He decided that he will also go to the small room and to stay with his passengers. And that's why he was a big hero. And he, together with his team, you can see, by the way, this scene in most of the movies that Hollywood made. And he decided to stay. And the day after, it was Wednesday and also Thursday, the French government sent 2 different flights, and she brought back all the foreign passengers. And the foreign passengers, most of them, when they landed in Paris, they met not only the local Secret Service, they also met Mossad agents. 26 Mossad agents that came immediately to the airport. Most of them could speak several languages, and they questioned most of the passengers. Some of them refused. Some of them decided to cooperate. Some of them asked to meet a day after in Paris. They questioned them, and they brought the whole map of the airport. They came with all the small details. How many terrorists, because it was not only the 4 terrorists that hijacked the plane, it was also some terrorists that already came before to Uganda and joined the 4 terrorists. So they came with all the details. And you need these small details when you come to release the hostages. And think about the terrorists. They don't wear a uniform. Okay, and you need to find them between all the hostages. Okay, so this information that came from Paris allowed the IDF and the commando unit to make a successful operation. And one of the women that released was Ninette Moreno. She was a Jewish with the Canadian passports. That's why she could join the foreigners. She got a small notebook with a black cover with a lot of small details that she wrote during the few days, and she gave the whole information that she can remember. And we can see the diagram that she made. And in the diagram, I know it's in Hebrew, but in the diagram, in the right side, you can see the main hole and the small hole and the door between them. And she decided after the operation to make Aliyah and to come to Israel. And her grandson, Emmanuel Moreno, became a high-rank officer in the special commando unit, Sayeret Matkal. And he took part in ambush in Lebanon and killed there. And it's very symbolic, the fact that the grandson became a high-rank officer in the same unit that released the hostages in Uganda. So this is the third part, the investigations in Paris.
Well, you've just given another example of what I mentioned in the intro, personal examples of affirmative Jewishness and affirmative Zionism. But tell us the story of a private pilot, an anonymous pilot, who really helped the planning. Will you tell us how this came about? What was this anonymous pilot? What did he do? Well, you can't tell us who he was, but what did he do that was exceptional?
So now we are talking about Friday morning. Friday morning is one day before the operation. A special Mossad agent came from Europe. He landed in Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, and he hired a small plane. He came with his small Leica camera. He took off by himself, and he flew to Uganda. And he talked with the tower, and he told the guy that he got a problem with the engine, and he need to land. Maybe it's emergency landing. And he started to make circles above the airport, and he made almost 100 pictures of all the area, aerial photos. Then he landed, he refueled the plane and talked with the staff there, and flew back to Kenya. And the IDF sent with the special plan, they sent the negatives to Tel Aviv. A special unit in the intelligence unit in IDF developed the pictures. And on Saturday, one big envelope with the pictures came to with the soldier. He gave this envelope to the Hercules staff, the last Hercules that took off from Lod. He gave them the pictures. And after, when they landed in Sharm el-Sheikh to refuel the plane, Sharm el-Sheikh in the south of Sinai, they shared all the pictures and they could see all the small details from the area day before. And in the meantime, a big envelope of pictures came to the Prime Minister's office, and he was in the middle of a meeting, and the chief of Mossad, together with Mike Harari. Mike Harari is the Israeli James Bond, we can say, Mike Harari. They showed him the pictures, and he saw that there is no anti-missiles, there is no missiles, there is no something that can destroy the program and something that can do to the operation. He saw that all the MiGs parking there, all the local MiGs that belong to the Ugandan army, and he decided also to destroy all the MiGs. It was part of the operation. And he decided to approve the operation because of these pictures. So of course, the pilot, the Mossad agents that passed away, unfortunately, very young, he was also the second hero. And we can talk also about the other heroes, the pilots, the Israeli Air Force pilots that landed almost in darkness, because when they landed, the International Airport Authorities decided to turn off the lights in the runways. So the IDF thought about it, and they came with stickers and the small lights, and they put the first plane when they landed, a few soldiers jumped from the plane and put all the stickers in the way that the other planes can use to recognize the runway and to land. So this is the another part of the Mossad. And again, it's everything that related, everything that happened outside Israel is the Mossad.
So coming back to the Jewish passengers, the Israeli passengers are being held hostage in advance of the arrival of the Israeli forces, special forces. Tell me the story of the tefillin. I have to tell our viewers, non-Jewish viewers, the tefillin as a Jewish apparel that men put on their arm and on their head for morning prayers. But this tefillin and a man called Akiva Avner has a special issue here that you wanted to mention.
Okay, so actually we have another connection to London, because Akiva Laxer, if I take you 4 years before, on 72, he was in London, and in the same time, the Munich Olympic Games happened, and he got a phone call from his friend, and he told him, why don't you come to Munich? The Israeli delegation is here. And he said, no, I don't want to come to Germany. He said, no, come on. It's the Olympic Games, and we have Israeli delegation. It's very symbolic. So he flew to Munich, and he was witness to the terror attack. And as we remember, the terrorists killed 11 Israelis from the Israeli delegation. And he swore to God, even if he's Orthodox, he said, I swear to God that I will not let the terror win, and I will fly from now on every 4 years to the Olympic Games. So after 4 years, he decided to fly to Montreal. It was the Olympic Games in Montreal, and that's why he was in the Air France plane, because he decided to fly from Paris. So he took the Air France to Paris, and from Paris, he planned to fly to Montreal. So, and then after 4 years, he was involved also in this hijacked plane. Now, since he was Orthodox, he got a small tefillin that he used to fly with to different places. And when they called his name in the separation on Tuesday, they asked him also to open his handbag. And when they saw the tefillin, they asked him, "Is it a communication system?" He said, "Yes, this is a special communication system, and I communicate with my God every morning, except Saturday." So they told him, "Okay, you know what? You can use your communication system with your God. Maybe he will help you." And a long line of Israelis, think about them praying with the tefillin every morning, and it's very symbolic. You know, even me, I'm not a religious Jew, but when I'm coming to airport and I see someone from Chabad and he offer me to pray with the tefillin, I cannot say no. Okay, but in the minutes that people feel that they are hostages far away from home, terrorists, guns, and they became maybe closer to the Judaism and God. And so this is the story of the tefillin. And after years, he gave me this tefillin, and it was part of a special exhibit that we made in Yitzhak Rabin Center in Tel Aviv. And it was the first time that Benjamin Netanyahu, the brother of Yonatan Netanyahu, the prime minister, came to see the exhibit and to open the exhibit, and it was a big success to join together the left side and the right side of the politic map, and to see Haredi people coming to Rabin Center. And it was a huge success for the center, a huge success for the exhibit. And for me, it was great because I met hundreds of visitors that each one of them came with a small piece, with a small knowledge, with a document, with a small story, pictures. And that's why, for example, we have a very rare picture from the operation. And in this picture, we can see the chief of the operation, that Dan Shomron, that after years became the chief of staff. And we can see him in the middle of the picture. And this is a very rare picture made by IDF Air Force officer. And he came with his private camera and made this picture. And after 40 years, they gave me the picture. They said, "Now it's okay, you can have this picture because it's important for the history."
Yeah, there's another thing I want to mention about Akiva Laksa. He gave a visiting card to another man, one that was being released by the terrorist, Peter Rabinovich. Tell us the story behind that.
So when the terrorists made the separation between the Israelis and non-Israelis and Jews and non-Jews, they continued to use the same bathroom. So Akiva went to the bathroom and waited there to meet one of the foreigners. And when he met Peter, he gave him his business card and asked him to send this card to Akiva's parents in Tel Aviv. And we all know the story that after a few days, Akiva landed in Israel, and when he came back home, after a few days, he got the envelope with this card.
So he got his card back. That's good. On a more tragic note, tell us what you know about Dora Bloch.
So unfortunately, Dora Bloch, an old woman that needed to go to the hospital the day before. And when she came to the hospital, she got a small thing that the doctors helped her, but they decided to let her stay in the hospital, and they decided not to send her back to the awful place, the airport. most of the passengers became sick and they got diarrhea, for example. And she stayed there. And the day after, when the Israeli forces landed, she wasn't there. She was in the capital in Kampala, and her son. She was with her son in the in Uganda. Her son stayed in the airport, and he spoke with one of the officers, and he told them, "My mom is in the hospital." And he told him, sorry, he told him, you have to fly with us back to Israel. Let's hope that they will not do anything for all the women, but we cannot help her. We cannot go to the hospital and bring her. We have to fly back home immediately. It's too dangerous. And therefore, unfortunately, a few days after, Idi Amin sent his animals to kill her. And 3 years after, in a special Mossad operation, it was on 79, the Mossad could locate the remains, and they came to Uganda with a small jet, and they flew with the remains to Kenya. And the special team from Israel, including a rabbi, checked the remains, approved that it's belonged to Dora Bloch, and they flew to Israel. And it's also, it shows you that the Mossad and the Israeli government will do everything, even to find a remains of every single Israeli or Jewish guy that something happened to him, and they will bring him home. And now Dora Bloch got a grave in Israel. And it's important to mention maybe the last part of the Mossad role is the connection, special connections with Kenya. Now, the 4 Hercules or 4 C-130 planes couldn't make this long flight without refueling the planes. So the Mossad, with the special connections with the Kenyan government, could offer the IDF to refuel the planes in Nairobi. So they landed after the operation. They flew to Kenya, they refueled the planes, and came to Israel. And also the Kenyan government helped the Mossad to build a temporary field hospital based on tents and beds, and the IDF sent a special Boeing built as an empty Boeing, built like a hospital with all the equipments that you need. And the IDF didn't need it because it was really a very big success. We got only 4 people, actually, together with Dora Bloch. It was 4 hostages that killed, and Jonathan Netanyahu, that was the chief of the commando unit. And so the last part of the role of Mossad in this operation is the connections in Kenya and the refueling and the hospital. And actually, this is the story of Entebbe. And it was the last time that anyone could hijack the plane. The chief of the terrorists that planned, Wadi Haddad, that planned this operation, unfortunately for him, he died after a year and a half. I don't know why, don't ask me. And after he passed away, no one could continue his legacy. So since Entebbe, no one could do or hijack the Israeli plane, and the terrorists needed to find a new way to act against Israel.
Okay, before we come to the military operation, you mentioned already Haddad. In the Entebbe airport, the hostages were being held by terrorists, both Palestinian terrorists and German terrorists. But the chief of operations was, as you mentioned, Wadi Haddad, and this wasn't his only plane hijacking. I think he was responsible for 6 or 7 plane hijackings. There was one big occasion in which his Palestinian terrorists hijacked 3 planes that were flown to Jordan and then blown up after the passengers disembarked. So if you could talk a bit more about the background of Wadi Haddad. I noticed you said that you don't want to talk about the way he died because the official version was he died of some sort of disease. But there was a story that he, by some journalist, that he had been fed Belgian chocolates. He had a healthy appetite. This what he had, and he was given boxes of Belgian chocolates by a Palestinian who was close to him, but had been obviously in somebody's pay. And he actually died of poisoning. I don't know if you want to talk about that or you think he was just part of a foreign journalist or investigative reporter.
So first of all, I would like to mention that the reason that he decided to hijack the plane to Uganda was the fact that a few months before, he tried to bomb El Al plane in Kenya. And the Mossad found out about it, and together with the Kenyan government, they stopped all the terrorists. So he wanted to release the terrorists that were in Kenya, and he also wanted to, in the same time, to release more terrorists from Israel and different locations. So he asked for releasing 53 terrorists, and he also asked for some few $1 million. So this is the reason, by the way. And you know, it's like a circle that you try to fight the terror. But anyway, you have to ask the journalist that wrote about the chocolate. But I can tell you from my experience that the Belgian chocolate is so good that you cannot say no when someone offers you a piece of chocolate, even if you are in the middle of diet.
All right, but on a more serious note, let me stress this point to our viewers. Wadi Haddad was one of the chief arch-terrorists of PFLP, the Palestinian Front for the Liberation of Palestine. This was the group that hijacked planes. This was the group that were killing Jews and Israelis. We're giving you one example over here. Today, the PFLP is represented by so-called pro-Palestinian human rights organization as a human rights organization. The PFLP, the Palestinian Front for the Liberation of Palestine, is a internationally designated terrorist organization today, and it is still alive and killing under the framework of the Palestinian Authority. That point I want to make over. But let's come on to the military campaign as much as you can tell us. I was intrigued by the fact that that when the Israeli special forces landed in the Hercules and got in the Mercedes and the Jeeps and headed for the airport lounge, the airport terminal, they were wearing a white, what we call here in Israel, cover temple, a kibbutz type hat. What's the significance of that?
Okay, since some of the commando soldiers came with wearing Ugandan soldiers' uniform, because they came like Ugandan soldiers together with that coming with the president. So, so most of the commando soldiers came with this special uniform and also with the red hats. They thought about a problem that since the local Ugandan army was part of this operation, actually, since the president of Uganda cooperated with the terrorists, his soldiers were there, above the terminal and around the terminal. And unfortunately, the IDF needed to kill the Ugandan soldiers. So they thought about the problem that you cannot know if in front of you it's an Israeli soldier or Ugandan soldier. So they decided to use the white hat. It's a very typical Israeli hat. And they made special 200 hats, 200 hats like this, and they share it with the soldiers. And actually, I have one of them in my studio, and it was also part of the exhibit.
So tell us briefly, in your own words, what happened when the lead soldiers broke into the terminal where the hostages and the terrorists were? The action, what happened? How long did it take?
So the first C-130 landed, and they immediately start to drive to the airport. The Mercedes in the front, and followed by two Land Rovers. And suddenly, in the middle of the highway, in the middle of the way, they saw two soldiers, two Ugandan soldiers, and Yoni decided to kill them. And he tried to kill them with his gun, and they opened also fired, and suddenly all the other soldiers in the two Land Rovers started to try to kill them also, and all the element of surprise disappear immediately. So hearing these voices of shooting, it was the middle of night, and the terrorists and also the hostages waked up immediately, and the terrorists started to wait. They thought at the beginning that it was like a crazy local soldiers that using the guns, but the element of surprise disappeared, and they needed to drive immediately to the airport. And in the meantime, one of the Arab terrorists, and I know this from the meeting with Michel Bakos, he told me that one of the Arab terrorists came to the Israeli room, and he killed the first Israeli that was there. It was Ida Borochovich, a woman, and he just shot her and killed her. And all the years before that, she died from our friendly fire, but until the day that he told me that he saw the Arab terrorist killing one of the passengers. Now they entered to the terminal in less than a minute. They could kill all the terrorists and release the passengers, and they start to take the passengers outside. Some of them walked to the empty Hercules that already landed. Some of them used the jeep that the Golani forces used, and this is the story of the terror, the attack, and the releasing less than a minute. And in the meantime, the Omer Bar-Lev, that today is the Minister of Interior Defense, he was the chief of a special department that was in charge of destroying the local MiGs, the local Ugandan Air Force. And he destroyed all the MiGs. And it was also, I believe, a part of a way to help the the Kenyan government, because Idi Amin was a crazy president, and he was a big problem to most of the African countries in Africa. And Entebbe considered as one of the biggest successful commando operation ever. And I know that there is some, for example, in India, they teach this operation and they learn about it. And when I'm lecturing in the States, sometimes I see people that don't know anything about this operation. That was, by the way, on the 4th of July, 76. It was exactly 200 years anniversary of the United States. And I think that we have to talk about this story and to show there is a lot of elements in this story, because this story shows that it's not only about Israelis and the state of Israel, it's about people all over the world fighting the terror.
I want you to explain to our viewers how you made peace within Israel. I'll explain a bit of a background to this, because at the time of you creating the exhibition regarding Entebbe, the political situation in Israel was pretty wrought between the right and the left, between Benjamin Netanyahu's brother, of course, Yoni Netanyahu, fell in the operation at Entebbe, and also against Stephen Rabin on the left. But tell us about your exhibition at the Paris Peace Center, in which I've seen a photograph of you together with both Benjamin Netanyahu and Rabin's daughter, Dalia Rabin, smiling happily at this event. Avner Avraham became the internal peacemaker here, it seemed.
Oh, thank you for this title. I will add this title to my Wikipedia. It wasn't in the Paris Center, it was in the Rabin Center in Tel Aviv. And as you know, there is the story of killing Yitzhak Rabin, and it was someone from the right side of the map. It was something that some of the people saw the connection between the right side and even Benjamin Netanyahu, that became after a prime minister. And it was important for me to show the exhibit in the Rabin Center. Rabin, we have to remember, he was the prime minister. He was the one, by the way, he was also the hero that took the decision to approve the operation and to bring the prime minister Netanyahu with his wife and 2 kids. And they came to see the exhibit. And I remember something that no one, maybe I will be the first one that published it, but I remember that Dalia told him, you have to come and see the whole museum, not only the Entebbe exhibit. And he decided to stay another hour and to see the local permanent exhibit. And the Shin Bet needed to check everything and to make sure that it's possible. And he was there another hour. And yes, it was a moment of peace inside Israel. And I feel lucky that I was a part of it.
Well done, Kol Hakavod. But also, you are a very creative person. You designed medals, a special commemorative medallion commemorating the Entebbe raid. Can you describe the medal to us? It's your creativity. On the one side, you have explained to us what we've got on that medal.
Okay, so in this medal that designed by my partner, Roy Segev, in the right side, it's actually the back side of the medal, you can see the Mossad role. You can see small symbols from the Mossad role in this operation. For example, you can see map of the UK, and you can see Paris. You can see the small jet with the small camera and the aerial photo from the airport. In the front, you can see the tower. The tower from Entebbe airport that still exists. You can see the 4 Hercules, and you can see the Air France Boeing with the MB. We decided to add MB to commemorate Michel Bacot's name. And in the tower, if you look at the windows, you can see 4 letters. It's the first letter of each one of the victims: Pascal Cohen, Jean-Jacques Maimoni, Ida Brochovich, and Dora Bloch, in Hebrew and in English. We can see also the iconic Mercedes, and all the rest is a part of the idea that you can share stories with the small coin for a big operation, and we have a limited edition. We sell these coins, and we also donate it for some events, and we also give it to, I gave, for example, this medal to the Prime Minister Netanyahu. We gave this medal also to Rabin's daughter, and we have a very nice album with the picture with the people that got this special medal, if we find a reason to, if they are part of the story. And this is the story. Now you can find everything in our website, SpyLegends.com. You can find also our shop. And the medal also comes with a special brochure in English and Hebrew, and you can read and learn more about the operation. We have today 8 different medals.
Also created a medal to commemorate the capture of Adolf Eichmann and to bring him back to Jerusalem for justice, for trial. That's also available in SpyLegends.com. So viewers, if you're interested in learning more about Avner's SpyLegends.com, go to their website. And if you're a head of an organization and you would want either Avner, his exhibition, or any of his guest speakers to come and give a talk either by Zoom or personally when we get over COVID, how do they contact you? Do you have an email address as well, Avner?
So again, if you go to info@SpyLegends.com, you can send me email. You have all the information in SpyLegends.com. Everything is there.
Right, so Avner, I hope many people will be in contact with you, but I can't let you go without you committing to come back on my show and tell us about the background of the Mossad involvement in another important Israeli operation, and that was Operation Diamond, in which, believe it or not, Israel managed to fly a new Russian MiG jet belonging to the Iraqi Air Force, if I remember right, and bring it back to Israel. So please agree to be my best, and thank you very much for being on this show. I'm sure this is going to be fascinating to many of us in our audience. Thank you, Avner.
Thank you very much. I can't wait to the next program with you. Thank you.
Well, I started the show by talking about the need for affirmative Jewishness and affirmative Zionism. I think this last hour that I've spent now with Avner has simply given you a clear demonstration of what's involved about being affirmatively Jewish, affirmatively Zionist. This is the heart of Israel. So thank you for joining me. I'm Barry Shaw, and this is The View from Israel.
אנו מכריזים בזאת